Hello, welcome pen friends. I'm back with another ink profile. This isn't part of any series, but it's kind of continuing after the voting. I picked up where we left off. Today's ink is KWZ Standard Monarch, and it's gorgeous. It's kind of like a burned orange to me. That's how I describe it. And it's a Fonto Plumo exclusive, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. What I could come up with for my research. But let's put this in the bath test, and that will be working. Ooh, look at the prettiness coming out. That'll be working while we're talking. I actually, I started to write viewer's choice, so there's a whole bunch of mess in the middle of there, but I didn't figure wasting Rhodia paper just to correct that, so we'll push that aside. And before I start, I just wanted to show you that I did add a stub nib for today's review. This is a Genhao 159 with a Goulet 1.5 millimeter stub on it. So we can really see the ink, and this is cool. I'm glad it was suggested, and I had already kind of been doing that off on my own with some of the inks anyway. So let me just show you. This is what I did. I got back into the notebook and started picking up the 6 votes and then the 5 votes. So if you'll recall, we just finished a viewer's choice series, so there was all this data on what would come up next, what received the next votes. So these are it, kind of in the rough. It's not a fancy list or anything. But let's get right into the Rhodia Gold book where I started, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this, this ink. So here it is in the broad nib, and then I've kind of tried to indicate it for you. I dropped into the fine nib here, and then the stub nib down here. So this was really neat because, boy, did that brighten and look nice in that 1.5 millimeter stub. Doing, a little bit of experimenting. So this Fonto Plumo in the Netherlands, it shows the ink, but it's sold out and not available. It's an exclusive to that company, and they're a fountain pen shop in the Netherlands. So the thing is that this was orange is the national color apparently of that country. So that is so awesome, and it also matches a pen. It matches a Conid Monarch Kingsize Bulkfiller fountain pen, which is a very expensive fountain pen. I looked that up while I was on their site because it mentioned it. But I thought this was fascinating. So this put me on my toes, because if you can't get this ink and you like it, what do you do, right? So we're going to do some comparisons. But in the meantime, here's the chromatography. Very pretty. It had that little stay behind there of kind of, it looks almost like a steel blue, or, well, I don't know why I said steel blue. It's a light blue, and then it comes up into orange, yellow, and orange, and it's just gorgeous. So this is Rhodia 90-gram paper. So you might want to, if you like Rhodia paper, pay attention here, because I did a little trimming on how many samples we'll look at as an experiment. So, okay, so next we'll get right into the CVS caliber notebook. I can't seem to drop that one. Here it is, nice and warm. Oh my goodness, it looks pretty on here. And here it is in the broad nib, the fine nib, and the stub, the Yo-O stub, basically. It's a Goulet nib. So, this wasn't very fast to dry. I kind of skimmed over that on the Rhodia, but on the Rhodia, it was at least 20 seconds to dry, closer to 30 seconds with that broad Yo-O nib. So on here, I don't care, I guess. I know that it wasn't drying quickly, so I'd have to be careful. That's terrible. Turn it over, no bleed through. I didn't do that over here. You could tell it's Monday morning. There was no bleed through, and that was on Tomoe River paper on the side there anyway. So, okay, let's get the other cheap paper sample out of the way. This is the 20-pound copy paper, and it wasn't real pretty on here as far as it flattened out, and you didn't get the shading that you enjoy on other papers. And it wasn't really all that quick to dry either. After 25 seconds, it was still smearing. But that doesn't bother me so much. It just, you don't see the beautiful shading that you get with the other papers. And we'll slow down and take a real good look at that on another sample. But, you know, and it shadows heavily and goes, and it tries to bleed through, but doesn't really do much of that. So this may be of value to someone who needs to write on that paper. And keep in mind the CVS caliber paper was also cheap paper. Now, let's hop on to the Clairefontaine. We'll look at this briefly, and then we have another sample later that'll probably be even better. But it does show a lot of nice shading on here, and that's the broad nib. And then in the fine nib, same thing. I can still see quite a bit of different variation. And then, ooh, it just pops in that 1.5 millimeter stub. It just warms up and looks even more orange. And if that's what you like, there you go, because it just looked really pretty, I thought. Didn't go through it all, of course. Okay, now we have two Tomoe River samples, and the first one is the 52 gram Tomoe River paper. Oh, I don't need to fold it. It's a spread. Okay, it starts over here in the broad nib, and then I did have to tape on a little sample because it reacted where I painted on trying to be cheap. It went right through and reacted with Ackerman sea blue. So that's what I get for trying to save paper, but that's okay. Here it is. It was not dry at 30 seconds, so that's why I have my blotter paper and the paper underneath when I write letters. Here it is in the fine nib, and it was still not dry at 30 seconds, so oh dear. But that's okay. With me, I don't care. I just kind of make accommodations for that. And there, you see what that does? I mean, that's not a trick of the camera at all. It becomes more orange in that stub nib. So there you have it. And I did start to look, okay, this is the Monarch, KWZ Monarch. And then here's Diamine Autumn Oak and Noodler's Habanero, which opened up a whole study, which we'll see at the end of the video if I can possibly fit it in. Yeah, it does seep through, so that's where I had a little problem on the other side. Okay, whoops, let's keep this handy just in case. This is the 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. Okay, and it did take quite a bit more room since I was, you know, using the stub nib too. But lots of shading. I don't know if I even mentioned that on here. You know, it's a shader. It's a happy shader. It shows you quite a bit of variation. Maybe not as much in the fine nib, but definitely in the other two nibs, I could see shading. Yeah, I actually enjoyed it the best in the broad nib. And then over here, same thing. Oh my goodness, it was just a nice shading ink in that broad nib. A long time to dry because I didn't stick around long enough to figure that out. I just felt like it would eventually dry, and be careful. So broad nib, fine nib, and then the stub nib. Excellent shading, I wrote. And indeed it does. A little bit better shading in the stub nib, it looks like, on the 68 GSM. Whereas, wow, yeah, there's a big difference there. I wonder why. Same pen, so, you know, not much, you know, that I could say about that, except that this is a little bit different paper, a little heavier. Is there anything else we need to see? Tried to seep through, but really didn't. There, you could get away with painting with that ink if you want to. Okay, so now let's step in and check this. Ooh, okay, where I had my colossal error, there was a little more left behind, but really you can't really read that well. I mean, that would be kind of hard, but that's okay. Makes it a typical fountain pen ink. All right, let's look at the comparison panel, and then we've got a surprise in the video there. You did something a little different this time. Okay. Wow, I don't know. I may have to, let me just adjust my camera. There we go, just a little. I don't want to cut off the names of the inks for you, because I did that last time. Okay, so right in the middle is KWZ Standard Monarch, and it's in good company. There are a lot of inks on this panel that I like. To the left is Diamine Autumn Oak, and that's a beautiful ink too. And then Noodler's Habanero is one of my favorites. I also love Monteverde Copper Noir. That's a recent find because a pen friend sent me a sample. And although it's a little different, I felt like it belonged in this family. It's a little more rust colored, but oh, it's beautiful. So, you know, we're talking about oranges, so, you know, it kind of runs the gamut here. We've got Quebeco Sunrise Orange up above. Now that's coming through darker than it looks to the eye. That's a shame, but we're treating them all similar. I mean, you're seeing them all together at least, but that's the best that we can do here. And then there's J. Arbonne Coraline d'Egypte. Now I don't have any of that left. That's a shimmer ink. Let's see. We may not be able to see it. It's a shimmer ink, and I ran it right down to nothing. So I don't have any left to work with on the next experiment that I'm going to show you. Well, for heaven's sake. And then, you know, I just went ahead and put like Diamine Pumpkin as a control. That's your, you know, crayon orange, so to speak, or your kindergarten orange to kind of compare. So there is no comparison because we're talking about a more of a burned orange, or a, you know, it can lean toward brown, or, you know, something like that. But we see it coming out of the nib looking very beautiful. So, and then Diamine Inferno Orange. I don't know why I put that there, but it did end up on the panel, along with Noodler's Apache Sunset. That's more yellow, but I just wanted you to see, because you're familiar, almost everybody's familiar with that Apache Sunset. So let's see what came of this. After this, I wasn't satisfied because I loved this so much, and I thought, well, if I can't get it, what am I going to do, right? How is it going to look? So let's just look at what I did, because this was fun. I got out my Clairefontaine French ruled pad. It's 90 GSM paper, and I started to play around with the inks. So here's KWZ Monarch. And then down below it was, my hypothesis was that Diamine Autumn Oak was going to look the closest in terms of what I have here. You may have something that's entirely closer. So I put that next, and it turned out that was a pretty good bet, because it did turn out to be the most similar among what I have. So, okay, and this is all with this pen, the Moonman Mini glass nib pen. So although it puts down more ink in the beginning, they're all treated the same. They all were dipped the same and used the same, and I didn't redip. So as you're looking at these, you are seeing, you know, an apple to apple. It was the same nib and pen, you know, and the same treatment of it. So then next was Monteverde Copper Noir, which turned out to be a lot darker, but it does that shading, and it's gorgeous. Really, really pretty. And if you want darker, then that would be your ink, I think. And then if you want lighter than KWZ Monarch, Noodler's Habanero is warm. It turns up that orange a lot. And there that is. And it has beautiful shading too, even in that glass nib. Now it takes quite a bit to get that out of a glass nib. Okay, and then at the end, just for grins, Noodler's Apache Sunset. I'm going to turn this sideways, even though I think that's pretty weird. But it's the only way we could see it all in the same frame, and so that's not really fair. Hopefully I'm not giving you a headache. So KWZ Monarch is our ink of the day. In my collection, Diamine Autumn Oak came in the closest. I'd love to hear about anything else you have that may be even closer. And then Monteverde Copper Noir went darker, and Noodler's Habanero lighter. And then, you know, Noodler's Apache Sunset, you just may be familiar with that. It's more yellow instead of orange or burned orange. But this was a lot of fun. And I do have the experiment, the visual journal experiment. Here it is. It was quite something. Tried to kind of get the impression of trees in there. And you know, since it's it's not resistant at all to the water. Really, it wanted to kind of fuzz out and move around, but it's still pretty, I thought. So that was very interesting. Okay, so this is a little bit different, but it's not September yet. So, you know, in September I'm going to be reviewing, or maybe not reviewing, mini reviewing, and going over 30 inks in 30 days. So I'm playing around with how I'm doing it to where I can maybe streamline it just a little bit. So what did you think of this ink, this KWZ Standard Monarch? I just, oh my gosh, I wish it was still available. It's gorgeous. Oh, and thank you to pen friend KS, or the initials, for sending that generous sample. It was enough to be able to put in all the 3 pens and the glass nib pen. And you know, play around with additional tests, so that was really nice. Just thinking that I'm forgetting to say something. Oh yes, I wanted to just show you something that's unrelated to this review, and that is that my pen friend sent me a while back this pen stand a couple weeks ago. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know who you are. SB, I'm going to call you out. It's gorgeous, and it turns out that it holds this Moonman Mini glass nib when it's posted, you know, because if you know about this pen, I did a review on it, it does go ahead and close over that glass nib. But when you're using it on your desk, oh wow, I thought of it right away as soon as I opened the package. And this is actually, oh, I got to be careful, I'll break that. This is actually to hold a razor. So let me get the box. There, okay, I just wanted to show you the box. It's, yeah, fine grooming products, GBS stainless steel, curved stand for razors. I do think it was an Amazon purchase, but I'm not sure. I just wanted to show you because it's really, really, really helping me use this glass nib right here on my desk. And so I threw that in even though it's totally unrelated. I'm going to post that pen before I break it because that would break my heart if I break that pen. When I'm using the glass nib, though, like I did with those 5 inks, it was just amazing. So that concludes today's. Now, interestingly, I'm driving myself crazy, much less. Okay, interestingly, Noodler's Habanero got 5 votes, and it's down the road a little ways. So it looks like we're going to be looking at that one, too, and that'll be great. And next on the list is J. Arbonne Emerald of Chivor. That received 6 votes in the viewer's choice. And even though this is not a series, this is just me plugging in individual reviews as I get a chance, I thought you might enjoy seeing what's coming up. Monteverde Moonstone, then after Emerald of Chivor, and then Habanero. Ackerman Passage Blue, Diamine Brandy Dazzle, a shimmer ink. KWZ Gray Plum, Robert Oster Deep Purple, Diamine Smoke on the Water, and Noodler's Seguro Wine. I think that's how you say that. So there were 10 of them that came next that included the 6 and 5 votes. So I would love to hear what you think about this ink and whether or not this was handy. Now, I don't always have all of the samples left in house to pull the glass nib out and do this, but I dug around and I found the last one standing was the Monteverde Copper Noir because I had used almost all of it and it was over near my art desk. So I found it and then I, got it onto the glass nib. So anyway, I hope you have a great week and I'd love to hear what you think about this ink. Thank you very much and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.